Update to a story we've talked about before. California faces the daunting task of trying to ease prison overcrowding. Conditions like this: prison cells so full, inmates end up sleeping in open spaces. A lot of people won't have much sympathy for them, of course. The U.S. Supreme Court, though, says it is upholding a ruling that gives California 2 years to fix the problem. The state has to reduce its prison population by more than 30,000 inmates. And yesterday, the state released its strategy for complying.
30 years ago, 10% of the general fund went to higher education, and only 3% went to prisons. Today, almost 11% goes to prisons, and only 7.5% goes to higher education. Spending 45% more on prisons than universities is no way to proceed into the future. So I will submit to you a constitutional amendment, so that never again do we spend a greater percentage of our money on prisons than on higher education.
Oklahoma prison inmates are set to be released next month.
Yeah, the new state law is supposed to relieve overcrowding, which is definitely a problem, but I'm sure not everybody's happy about this. Weekend Morning anchor Brandon Byer is live this morning. Brandon, the prosecutors are among those who are really upset about this, but how does it work?
Matt and Nita, one DA says that he doesn't really think legislators understood the impact of what they were doing when they passed this law. The district attorney for Canadian County and several other counties says that releasing these prisoners undermines public safety. Lawmakers say it's the opposite. They say that this is going to help out. House Speaker Chris Steele says releasing nonviolent offenders will allow correction officials to focus their limited resources on inmates who are truly threats to our society, violent offenders. Prosecutors say they're concerned because the nonviolent offenders who weren't eligible for a while to be released can now be released with an ankle monitor after just serving 90 days.
America's prisons are overflowing. Here in California, gyms are turned into dormitories as the prison system struggles to cope. The numbers are striking. Almost 1% of the adult population in the US is in prison, and close to half of all inmates are serving time for drug-related offences. In 2010, it cost the taxpayer $80 billion. It's a legacy of the 5 decades-long war on drugs, which enforced mandatory minimum sentences for even low-level drug crimes.
U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder wants to end harsh prison sentences for some drug-related crimes.
We need to ensure that incarceration is used to punish, to deter, and to rehabilitate, but not merely to warehouse and to forget.
Mandatory minimum sentences went on the books in the 1980s to fight the war on drugs. The inmate population skyrocketed, and today federal prisons are operating nearly 40% above capacity. Almost half the inmates are there for drug-related crimes, and many of them are low-income and Black or Latino. This costs taxpayers more than $80 billion a year.
Every dollar that the DOJ spends keeping a nonviolent drug offender locked up is a dollar that could be spent buying bulletproof vests for cops.
Now the Justice Department is directing U.S. attorneys across the country to change the way they charge nonviolent drug offenders who aren't connected to gangs, so those offenders won't face mandatory minimum sentences.
We in the federal government can become both smarter and tougher on crime.